These individuals took extreme measures to try to cover their actions, but they were no match for our investigators. Isaiah Chance, Elisa Andrews, Sean Gathwright, Davion Murphy, and Rashad Murphy are all accused of playing a role in Jones's death.
The murder case of Florida rapper Julio Foolio is taking another wild turn, as one of the alleged shooters wants to get rid of his lawyer and surprisingly represent himself. And that can get kind of dicey, not only because you have no law experience, but also because this isn't traffic court. It's a murder case that, if convicted, a jury could not only send you away for life, but also vote to put you to death. Rashad Murphy has been in jail since his arrest last summer. He, along with his cousin Davion and another man named Sean Gathwright, are accused of gunning down rapper Julio Foolio, whose real name is Charles Jones.
You can see the shooters are getting in position for their planned out murder.
But Rashad, Davion, and Sean aren't the only ones charged in connection to the Jacksonville rapper's murder. It's 5 people total. Alicia Andrews and Isaiah Chance Jr. are also charged, and despite not being accused of pulling the trigger, instead just tracking down and following Julio Foolio leading up to his murder, they're still charged with first-degree murder. But back to Rashad. Just last week, he submitted a request for a speedy trial, and in a crazy twist, also asked to get rid of his lawyer. Again, not the best move given you're facing the ultimate punishment of death. Now, according to Action News Jax, he was warned by his attorney and the judge against this. But seems like Rashad still wants to move forward as his own lawyer. And this isn't the only issue he has. Earlier this month, he wrote a letter to the judge saying he's frustrated with his treatment in jail, telling the judge he's being treated as if he's already guilty. The deputies won't let him send mail or call his lawyers or prepare for his case. But here's the thing. Investigators have a lot of evidence on the entire group.
The investigation would later reveal that the 3 armed shooters were Sean Gathwright, Rashad Murphy, and Davion Murphy. Detectives used footage from the scene, license plate readers, and phone logs to identify 2 vehicles and link them back to the suspects. Furthermore, it was found that the shooters are members of or affiliated with rival gangs of Jones that go by ATK and 1200. Jones was part of the 6 Block gang. Detectives believe that the ATK and the 1200 worked together to target Jones as part of an ongoing feud in Jacksonville. I want to send a clear message to anyone that the city of Tampa is not where you want to come to settle a dispute. You will be charged, you will be arrested, and you will be prosecuted to the fullest extent possible. Furthermore, if you're a gang member, there's no alleged immunity through a cone of silence, as our detectives will find evidence needed to make an arrest and hold everyone accountable, just as we did in this case. Then, you will be prosecuted by our tenacious state attorney, Susie Lopez.
Obviously, later on, it'll be up to a jury to determine if it's enough to convict. So is it possible Rashad is just hoping any old defense will stick? Well, back in November, he said he was going for an insanity defense. So what does it all mean now? Well, we'll have to wait and see after a hearing this week if Rashad does have the right state of mind and able to move forward with a speedy trial. As for the other defendants, none have followed suit as far as trying to defend themselves for trial. Let's bring on now former Palm Beach County State Attorney Dave Ehrenberg to get his insight into this case. Dave, it's always so great to see you. I remember when this case first unfolded and rapper Julio Foolio was shot and the arrest came, and then the 5th and final arrest even happening just a couple weeks ago. But now we have Rashad Murphy, one of the accused hitmen or alleged murderer, now demanding a speedy trial. Why do you think that he, one, wants a speedy trial, and why do you think his attorney is advising against it?
I think this guy's nuts. I think that's why. I mean, he wants to defend himself, which is insane in a death penalty case. And then he actually has said that he may use an insanity defense, which also is insane in itself when the facts show otherwise, that these guys had meticulous planning and attempts to cover up the crime. And when you have that, good luck in getting an insanity defense, because to sustain an insanity defense, you have to have an established medical condition, and you have to not know the difference between right and wrong. But when you meticulously plan and then try to cover up your tracks, that shows you knew the difference between right and wrong. It shows you knew what you did was illegal. And when you want to just try to put forward an insanity defense as your own lawyer, it doubles the level of difficulty.
Yeah, and there are a lot of high stakes in this case. Are you surprised that he appears so nonchalant about representing himself or going for this NGI defense, given that he's already facing the death penalty?
Yeah, that's why he may have a screw loose, but it doesn't mean he satisfies the requirements of an insanity defense. Yeah, look, well, I was a prosecutor. We dealt with people all the time who were sociopaths, who were really nuts, but didn't mean that they were legally insane to be found not guilty under the law. It's a much higher burden. And so, yeah, this guy's got some screw loose, but after all, that's why he's involved allegedly in this kind of crime. I mean, normal people just don't go around meticulously plan an execution of someone else because of some rap beef that was going on, because of some diss track. So this guy's in a lot of trouble. And if he goes through with the speedy trial, he could be forced to go to trial within like just a matter of days, which I don't think that would happen because there are Sixth Amendment issues to ensure the right to a fair trial for all defendants, even the loony ones. And so that's why I think that he will probably end up with a lawyer. And if not, he will at least get more time than just 3 or 4 days to prepare.
And does it come as any surprise to you that prosecutors are seeking the death penalty in this case, given all this evidence against the defendants, given that, there was meticulous planning, as you've mentioned, to go into this type of murder, but does it come as any shock to you that they are actually seeking the death penalty in this case?
Well, when it comes to death penalty, you have to have at least one aggravator, and there's a series of statutory aggravators. So part of the reasoning is out of the prosecutor's hands. I mean, they do have discretion whether or not to seek it, but they can't just invent saying, I think that this was just a bad case. They can't just invent reasons. You have to have a statutory reason why you can get the death penalty. For example, was it cold, calculated, and premeditated? Well, okay, there you go. Was it heinous, atrocious, and cruel? There are a bunch of things that make you eligible for the death penalty. But even then, it's still not easy to get. Even though Florida reduced the standard from unanimous to only 8 to 4, all you need is 8 out of 12, which is the lowest of any state in the country. Still, the jury has to be unanimous on at least one aggravator. And then the defense can come up with any mitigator they want. His mother didn't love him enough. His mother smoked in the womb. That was actually a mitigator that was used in the Parkland massacre case that the defense used successfully. His mother smoked while he was in the womb. He didn't get the oxygen he needed. So it's not easy to get the death penalty, even under the reduced standards. But it's generally reserved for the person who pulls the trigger. I'd be surprised if they're able to get the death penalty for someone who was involved in the murder, but was not the one who actually pulled the trigger.
And in this case, we're seeing that Rashad Murphy is, writing to the judge. In your experience, do you see a lot of defendants writing letters to the judge? We've seen this plenty of times in the Sarah Boone case. But in this case, Rashad Murphy told the judge that he's being treated as if he's already been found guilty. He said the deputies won't let him send mail or call his lawyer or even prepare for his case. What do you think that really does? And can the judge kind of even have the discretion to address issues that are even going on in the jail?
Yeah, this happens all the time. Defendants need to work with their lawyer, though. And for some reason, this guy doesn't get along well with his lawyer and he wants to represent himself. Another reason why you need a lawyer, because the judge is unlikely going to deal with the defendant and his request. Generally, it's a lawyer who has to present it to the court and say, my client needs to be able to prepare and only gets 15 minutes a day in the law library. I mean, there are certain things that you can do again in order to get more time to get visiting hours with your lawyer, to get more confidentiality where you're in a separate room so you're not around other people. There are certain things you could get from the court, but this guy is not going about it the right way.
And given the magnitude of this case, you have 5 defendants, some who are being tried separately, like Alicia Andrews, who is alleged to have tracked down the victim. But if Rashad Murphy continues to represent himself and a judge approves that at his trial, what does that kind of mean for all the other defendants in this case, especially given that, from what we know, Rashad Murphy doesn't have law experience or, any type of degree that would make him a lawyer or anything like that. So what would this mean for the other defendants, given there might be a slip up if he is, chosen to represent himself?
Yeah, if I were the other defendants, I'd be worried because you never know what this guy's going to say. He's a bit of a loose cannon. And if he gets an open mic in court, he could implicate his co-defendants. He could say something that will not only hurt himself, but will hurt everyone else in this case. So it's in their interest that he gets competent counsel. Doesn't look like he's going down that road right now, but maybe cooler heads will prevail.
Yeah, because what is the old adage that it says if you choose to represent yourself, you have a fool of a client? And not to make light of this, because this is a very serious thing, but, I'm just kind of surprised that he wants to go that route in this case. And then on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, the state is expected to hold a hearing to see if Rashad is in the right state of mind and able to move forward with the speedy trial. What all could that entail? What could we expect from a hearing like that?
Well, you have to be found competent to stand trial. You have to know and understand the proceedings in front of you. You have to be able to assist with your defense. But then when it comes to representing yourself, you have to know what you're getting into here. You have to know that you've just waived your right to have a lawyer on a case that could lead to your death. This is a death penalty case. And death penalty lawyers are death penalty certified. And here's a guy who is not a lawyer, who is just clearly full of himself that he thinks he can do this, and he's just walking into a buzzsaw. So he's going to be pretty much read the riot act. Say, after all this, are you sure that you want to proceed? Plus, there will be tests of his competency and to make sure that this is not just a setup for him to have suicide by court, essentially. So they're going to talk it over a lot. They're going to ask him a lot of questions. They're going to talk to court experts to make sure that he's up for it. In the end, I still believe that cooler heads will prevail, that he will get a lawyer. But even if he represents himself, under Florida law, he gets standby counsel. So he'll have a lawyer standing by just in case. But it's always a weird dynamic when the lawyer that you don't want, that you dislike, is standing there just to bail you out of your own mess. It's just a dynamic that doesn't usually work.
Yeah, if I was facing first-degree murder as well as the death penalty, I think I would actually possibly take advice. Not possibly, definitely take advice from somebody who actually knows the law, who has actually practiced this and went to school for this, all of that sort. So I'm actually very surprised that Rashad Murphy is thinking the opposite way, but we're not in the same positions there. Well, Dave Ehrenberg, I always appreciate your insight and your time, especially going into these types of cases here. Before we sign you off, though, where do you think everything goes from here?
I think there'll be guilty verdicts. Whenever you have these multi-defendant cases, there's such an interest and incentive to point the finger at each other. And even though that hasn't happened yet, I think that at some point someone will flip when it gets real, when they see that they're facing a lethal injection. And perhaps it's the young woman who was pregnant at the time that she was involved in all this. Maybe she's the one who wants to speak up if she wants to see her child again. So we'll see. But I think this is headed towards guilty verdicts all around.
All right. Again, Dave, thank you so much for your insight into this. I always appreciate it.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Great to be with you.
And Rashad Murphy is set to appear in court on Tuesday, February 4th. And that's when we should see if they'll move forward with the speedy trial and learn if he'll actually be his own lawyer at his trial. As for his cousin Davion, he's set to appear in court in March for a status review. So no trial date set for him just yet. Online records show that Sean Gathwright and Isaiah Chance Jr.'s trial is set for April of next year. Meanwhile, Alicia Andrews at this time is the only one who is set to go on trial this year, and that's set for August. Reporting for Law and Crime, I'm Elizabeth Millner.